In the shadows of the city, where secrets are commodities and trust is a luxury, one man delves into the minds of the monstrous. Welcome to the world of Jason King, a detective with a mind as sharp as a scalpel and a heart as resilient as steel. Beneath the ordinary scenes of daily life, grim tales of notorious serial killers lurk. Each one, unique in their madness, leaves behind a chilling legacy of victims and unsolvable puzzles. But the twisted minds of these murderers never elude Jason King. With every episode, the stakes rise. Every grim detail, each hideous crime, King peels back layer by layer. In a world where evil is the norm and horror is the narrative, Jason King remains steadfast. His mission? To uncover the dark consciousness of terror. His promise? Justice. This is Jason King's world, where crime is not just confronted, but comprehended. Dive deep into the chilling tales of serial killers with Jason King. The year was 2012. The leaves were just beginning to turn in the rolling hills of Kentucky. A chill touched the air, a harbinger of the coming winter. But in the bustling city of Highland Heights, life was anything but cold. Among the city's ambitious young professionals, one name was on the rise: Ryan Carter Poston. He was a young man with a bright future. He had a law degree, a promising career, and a charm that could light up a room. Ryan was a force to be reckoned with in the courtroom. His sharp mind and quick wit made him a formidable opponent. He was known for his dedication to his clients, his passion for justice, and his unwavering determination to win. Outside the courtroom, Ryan was a loyal friend, a loving son, and a true gentleman. Ryan's story was just beginning. He had dreams of making a name for himself, of building a family, of leaving his mark on the world. He was a young man in love with life, eager to embrace all that it had to offer. Little did he know, however, that his story was about to take a dark and tragic turn. Ryan Carter Poston was the epitome of an all-American boy. Born and raised in the heartland of America, he embodied the values of hard work, determination, and a thirst for life. He excelled in school, participating in sports and academics with equal fervor. His infectious laughter and genuine kindness drew people to him like moths to a flame. He was a natural leader, inspiring those around him to be their best selves. After graduating high school with honors, Ryan set his sights on a career in law. He believed in justice, in fairness, and in using his voice to fight for those who couldn't fight for themselves. He saw the law as a powerful tool for change, and he was determined to wield it with integrity and compassion. He aced his LSATs and was accepted into one of the most prestigious law schools in the country. Law school was a crucible, testing Ryan's intellect and resilience. He thrived in the challenging environment, soaking up knowledge like a sponge. He spent countless hours in the library, poring over legal texts, preparing for moot court competitions, and engaging in lively debates with his classmates. He wasn't just studying the law, he was living it, breathing it, becoming it. It was during his time in law school that Ryan met Shayna Hubers. She was a captivating presence, with a sharp mind and an even sharper tongue. Their initial attraction was undeniable, a whirlwind romance that swept them both off their feet. They were drawn to each other's ambition. Shayna, too, was studying law, and they found common ground in their shared dreams of legal success. Their relationship, however, was a tempestuous one. Friends and family noticed the cracks beneath the surface, the fiery arguments that seemed to erupt out of nowhere. There were whispers of jealousy, possessiveness, and a darkness that lurked beneath Shayna's charming facade. Despite the concerns of those closest to them, Ryan and Shayna's relationship continued, fueled by a volatile mix of passion and conflict. Ryan, ever the optimist, believed he could fix things, that their love was strong enough to weather any storm. He was blinded by his feelings for Shayna, unable to see the danger that lurked beneath the surface. He continued to shower her with affection, hoping to rekindle the spark that had initially drawn them together. He clung to the belief that their future was bright, that they would overcome their challenges and build a life together. Ryan and Shayna's relationship began like something out of a movie. They were young, ambitious, and undeniably drawn to each other. Their connection was electric, a whirlwind of late-night study sessions, romantic dinners, and stolen kisses. Shayna loved Ryan's charm and ambition, while Ryan was enchanted by Shayna's beauty and wit. Their relationship moved quickly, fueled by intense attraction and shared dreams. To the outside world, they were the perfect couple. As the months passed, the cracks in Ryan and Shayna's relationship began to widen. What initially appeared as passionate intensity morphed into something darker and more possessive. Shayna's insecurities boiled over, manifesting as jealousy, control issues, and volatile outbursts. Ryan's friends and family noticed subtle changes in her behavior. She became increasingly possessive, demanding to know his whereabouts, monitoring his phone calls and text messages, and flying into jealous rages at the mention of other women. Her once endearing quirks became off-putting, revealing a manipulative streak. Despite his unease, Ryan remained committed to the relationship. He rationalized Shayna's behavior, attributing it to her insecurities or stress. He believed that with love and patience, he could help her overcome her demons. Friends and family, however, weren't so easily convinced. They witnessed the toll Shayna's behavior was taking on Ryan. His usual exuberance dimmed, his easy smile replaced by a strained expression. They urged him to reconsider the relationship and prioritize his well-being, to acknowledge the red flags waving frantically in his face. The tension between Ryan and Shayna escalated as the months wore on. Their fights became more frequent, more explosive. Shayna's jealousy intensified, fueled by her own insecurities. She accused him of infidelity, interrogated his every move. Ryan found himself walking on eggshells, trying to appease Shayna's volatile moods. He made excuses for her behavior, downplaying her outbursts. Despite the turmoil, Ryan couldn't walk away. He was trapped in a cycle of love and abuse, drawn back by memories of their passionate beginnings. Shayna clung to Ryan with a desperate intensity, terrified of losing him. It was an exhausting, emotionally draining dance, leaving both battered and bruised. The inevitable break finally came in the fall of 2012. After a heated argument, Ryan ended the relationship. He knew it was the right decision. But breaking up with Shayna was like trying to extinguish a wildfire. Shayna refused to accept the breakup. She bombarded Ryan with calls and messages. She showed up at his apartment unannounced. Ryan stood firm in his decision. He had reached his breaking point. The weeks that followed were a blur of anxiety. He knew Shayna's love could turn dangerous. He took precautions, changing his phone number and avoiding familiar places. He hoped Shayna would eventually move on and find peace. Days turned into weeks, and the leaves outside Ryan's window transformed into a vibrant tapestry of autumn hues. He was slowly rebuilding his life, piece by piece, trying to erase the memories of the tumultuous relationship that had left him emotionally drained. One crisp October evening, Ryan decided to join his friends at a local bar. It was a rare night out, a chance to unwind and forget about the drama. The sound of laughter and clinking glasses washed over him, and a genuine smile spread across his face. For a few precious hours, Ryan allowed himself to relax. The weight of the past few months seemed to lift, replaced by a flicker of hope for the future. The following day, Ryan woke up, feeling refreshed. The remnants of the previous night's unease fading with the morning light. He had a spring in his step as he went about his day, a renewed sense of optimism buoying his spirits. He had made it through the worst of the breakup, and he could finally see the light at the end of the tunnel. That evening, Ryan received a text message from Shayna. His heart skipped a beat as he read her words, a strange mix of apprehension and curiosity washing over him. She wanted to see him, to talk, to apologize for her past behavior. Ryan hesitated, his finger hovering over the screen of his phone. He knew he should ignore her, that any attempt at reconciliation would only lead to more pain and heartache. But a part of him couldn't help but feel a flicker of hope. Over the next few days, Shayna bombarded Ryan with phone calls, text messages, and emails. She professed her undying love, begged for forgiveness, and promised to do anything to win him back. Ryan found himself caught in a web of his own making, torn between his desire to move on and the nagging feeling that he owed Shayna some sort of closure. He knew he couldn't go back to the way things were, that their relationship was toxic and beyond repair. Driven by a desire to end the constant barrage of messages and perhaps find some semblance of peace, Ryan agreed to meet Shayna for dinner. He told himself it was a chance to talk things through, to set boundaries, to make it clear that there was no possibility of reconciliation. As the day of the meeting approached, Ryan couldn't shake the feeling of unease that settled over him like a shroud. He tried to rationalize his anxiety, telling himself he was overreacting, that Shayna wouldn't do anything rash. But deep down, a primal instinct whispered a warning, a chilling premonition that something was terribly wrong. On the eve of their scheduled dinner, Ryan received a phone call from Shayna. Her voice was uncharacteristically subdued, laced with a quiet desperation. Ryan hesitated, torn between his better judgment and the urge to comfort her. He rationalized his decision, telling himself he was just going to talk. A sense of dread settled over him, a premonition of something terrible. Ryan pulled up outside Shayna's apartment building, the engine of his car sputtering to a stop. He sat there for a moment, the rhythmic thudding of the windshield wipers, a relentless soundtrack to his mounting anxiety. He glanced at the clock on his dashboard, the illuminated numbers, a stark reminder of the time. With a heavy heart, Ryan stepped out of the car and into the cold, driving rain. As he made his way towards the entrance, his footsteps echoing on the wet pavement, he paused at the doorway, his hand hovering over the doorknob. The air inside Shayna's apartment was thick with a strange mixture of perfume and dread. Ryan couldn't place it. This unsettling aroma that seemed to cling to the back of his throat like unsmoked cigarette smoke. Shayna, however, was all smiles, her eyes sparkling with a mixture of relief and something else, something Ryan couldn't quite decipher. It sent a chill down his spine, this unsettling gleam that belied her otherwise cheerful demeanor. She had set the scene carefully, a romantic tableau designed to rekindle the embers of their past love. Candles flickered on the coffee table, casting dancing shadows on the walls. A bottle of wine, already opened, sat next to two glasses. Soft music played in the background, a haunting melody that seemed to underscore the unease gnawing at Ryan's gut. "You came," Shayna said, her voice a breathy whisper that sent a shiver down his spine. She stepped closer, her body pressing against his, her perfume, cloying and unfamiliar, engulfing him like a suffocating cloud. He wanted to pull away, to create distance, to escape the unsettling intensity of her gaze. But something held him rooted to the spot, a strange mix of morbid fascination and deep-seated fear of what might happen if he made a wrong move. "I said I would," Ryan replied, his voice a strained whisper that seemed to get lost in the oppressive silence of the apartment. The details of the next few hours were a blur, a hazy montage of strained conversation and mounting tension. Shayna's facade crumbled, her words a torrent of emotional manipulation that left Ryan drained. She begged him to reconsider, to give their love another chance. But Ryan sensed a darker current beneath her words. He reiterated his decision, his voice firm despite the tremor. The more Ryan resisted, the more agitated Shayna became. She lashed out, her words laced with venomous fury. He knew then, with chilling certainty, he had made a terrible mistake. The shot rang out, shattering the tense silence of the apartment. 1 minute Ryan was looking into Shayna's eyes. The next he was staring at the ceiling, pain blossoming in his chest. He looked down, disbelief warring with terror as he saw the blood blooming on his shirt. He felt himself falling, the world tilting before everything went black. The sound of sirens pierced the night, a jarring counterpoint to the frantic beating of Shayna's heart. She paced her apartment, phone in hand, mind racing to piece together a plausible story. Her fingers fumbled with the phone's keypad, dialing 911. She told the operator about an intruder, a desperate attempt to shift the blame. She glanced at Ryan's body, the crimson stain a stark reminder of her actions. Her facade shattered. She was a fraud, a murderer. The arrival of the police was a blur. A cacophony of flashing lights barked orders, and the sickening scent of blood mingling with the cloying perfume that still hung heavy in the air. Shayna watched from the sidelines, her body trembling, her mind a maelstrom of conflicting emotions, as the nightmare she had created unfolded around her. She told her story, her voice a shaky monotone, as she recounted the fabricated tale of the intruder, the break-in, the struggle, the gunshot that had ended Ryan's life. But even as she spoke, she could see the doubt creeping into the eyes of the officers, the subtle shift in their demeanor, as they noticed the inconsistencies in her story, the lack of forced entry, the absence of any other signs of a struggle. They separated her from the chaos, ushering her into a squad car. The cold metal, a stark contrast to the surreal horror of the past few hours. As they drove away, the sirens wailing a mournful dirge, Shayna glanced back at her apartment building, the windows dark and lifeless, like the eyes of a man who would never see the light of day again. And in that moment, as the reality of her actions settled over her like a shroud, Shayna Hubers knew that her life, as she knew it, was over. Highland Heights, Kentucky, known for its quiet charm, was about to become the epicenter of a media storm. The news of Ryan Carter Poston's death spread through the community like wildfire. Whispers turned to gasps as details of the crime emerged. The town's facade shattered, replaced by the grim reality of violence. Detective John Doe, known for his meticulous approach, was assigned to the case. He stepped into Shayna Hubers' apartment, the scene of the crime. The air was thick with the metallic scent of blood. Ryan's body lay sprawled on the floor, lifeless eyes staring blankly. A single bullet wound to the chest, a testament to the brutality. The apartment felt staged, artificial. Overturned furniture, shattered glass. Too deliberate. Detective Doe surveyed the scene. His gut told him something wasn't right. Shayna Hubers' story felt rehearsed, lacking raw emotion. Shayna Hubers, draped in a thin blanket, sat in the interrogation room, her eyes red-rimmed and puffy, her demeanor a strange mixture of grief and defiance. Detective Doe watched her carefully, his years of experience teaching him to see through the facade, to recognize the subtle tells that betrayed a guilty conscience. The interrogation was a delicate dance, a slow and methodical process of chipping away at Shayna's carefully constructed story. Detective Doe, his voice calm and measured, presented the inconsistencies he had observed at the crime scene, the discrepancies in her account, the lack of physical evidence supporting her claims of an intruder. As the hours wore on, the cracks in Shayna's facade began to widen. Her story, riddled with contradictions and inconsistencies, crumbled under the weight of Detective Doe's relentless questioning. Her initial composure gave way to flashes of anger, bursts of tears, desperate attempts to regain control of the narrative. And then, in a moment of chilling clarity, Shayna confessed. The words tumbled out of her mouth, a torrent of guilt and self-preservation. She admitted to shooting Ryan, her voice a monotone, as she recounted the events that led to his death. But her confession, far from being a moment of remorse, was a calculated act, a desperate attempt to paint herself as the victim. Section 3. Unraveling the Digital Trail. While Detective Doe was meticulously piecing together the events leading to Ryan's death, a team of forensic analysts were busy unraveling the digital trail left behind by both Ryan and Shayna. They dove headfirst into a world of text messages, emails, social media posts, and phone records, searching for clues that would illuminate the tumultuous relationship between the victim and the accused. What they discovered painted a disturbing picture of obsession, control, and escalating violence. Ryan's messages to friends and family revealed a young man trapped in a toxic relationship, desperate to break free from the clutches of a possessive and volatile girlfriend. He confided his fears, his anxieties, his growing unease about Shayna's behavior. Shayna's digital footprint, on the other hand, was a testament to her obsessive nature. Her messages to Ryan were a roller coaster of declarations of love, desperate pleas for attention, and venomous threats. She monitored his every move, bombarded him with calls and texts, and flew into jealous rages at the slightest perceived betrayal. The digital evidence, a tapestry woven from countless keystrokes and digital whispers, corroborated the prosecution's theory. Shayna Hubers, driven by a toxic mix of obsession and possessiveness, had murdered Ryan Carter Poston in cold blood. Section 4. The jailhouse interview. A shocking admission. The case against Shayna Hubers was growing stronger by the day, bolstered by forensic evidence, witness testimonies, and her own chilling confession. However, a bombshell was about to drop, one that would send shockwaves through the community and beyond. A local news station, eager for an exclusive in the high-profile case, managed to secure a jailhouse interview with Shayna. Sitting in a stark room, her orange jumpsuit a stark contrast to her carefully styled hair and makeup, Shayna addressed the camera, her voice calm and measured, a stark contrast to the hysterical demeanor she had displayed during her arrest. What followed was not an apology, not a plea for forgiveness, but a series of cold, calculated statements that sent chills down the spines of those watching. She spoke of the shooting in a detached manner, describing the position of Ryan's body, the sound of the gunshot, the lack of emotion she felt as his life ebbed away. Her words, devoid of remorse or empathy, painted a chilling portrait of a woman seemingly at peace with her actions, a woman who saw murder as a solution, a means to an end. The interview, broadcast nationwide, cemented Shayna Hubers' image as a cold-blooded killer in the eyes of the public. Section 5. Building the case. The prosecution's strategy. The prosecution, led by the formidable Commonwealth's attorney, Jane Doe, had a strong case against Shayna Hubers. They had a confession, albeit a self-serving one, They had a mountain of digital evidence showcasing a pattern of obsessive behavior and escalating violence. And they had eyewitness accounts, painting Shayna as a possessive and volatile girlfriend. However, they knew they couldn't rely solely on the technical aspects of the case. They needed to connect with the jury on an emotional level to make them understand the victim, Ryan Carter Poston, was more than just a name on a file, that he was a son, a brother, a friend, a young man with a bright future snatched away in a moment of senseless violence. They planned to humanize Ryan, to paint a picture of his life, his dreams, his aspirations. They would present him as a victim of domestic violence, a young man ensnared in a web of manipulation and control, unable to escape the clutches of his abuser. They would argue that Shayna Hubers, driven by an explosive mix of jealousy and possessiveness, had murdered Ryan in cold blood. The prosecution's strategy was clear: to present a compelling narrative, supported by irrefutable evidence that would leave no doubt in the minds of the jury that Shayna Hubers was guilty of murder. The air in the Campbell County courtroom was thick with anticipation. The weight of the case hung heavy over the proceedings. Spectators packed the gallery, their eyes glued to the defendant, Shayna Hubers. The prosecution, led by Jane Doe, exuded quiet confidence. Their case was built on forensic evidence and Shayna's confession. The defense, led by William Smith, faced an uphill battle. As the trial commenced, the courtroom became a battleground of words. Section 2. Dueling narratives. The prosecution and the defense. The prosecution methodically presented its case. Each piece of evidence a brick in the wall they were building around Shayna Hubers. The defense, in turn, attempted to dismantle the prosecution's narrative piece by piece. They called witnesses who testified to Shayna's good character, her kind heart, her gentle nature. The courtroom became a crucible, a pressure cooker of emotions. Section 3. Verdict and sentencing. Justice or a miscarriage. After weeks of testimony and evidence, the case went to the jury. The weight of their decision was palpable. They held Shayna Hubers' fate in their hands. Days turned into an agonizing wait. The tension in the courtroom was almost unbearable. Families of both Ryan and Shayna sat on opposite sides, waiting for the verdict. Finally, the jury returned, their faces betraying nothing. The silence was deafening as the verdict was read. Guilty. A collective gasp rippled through the gallery. Shayna Hubers showed no outward emotion. The judge sentenced Shayna Hubers to 40 years in prison. Section 1. Justice served. The courtroom erupted in a cacophony of gasps and sobs as the judge read the sentence. 40 years. 4 decades stolen from a life that had barely begun. A life that had once held so much promise. For Ryan's family, huddled together in the front row, their faces a tapestry of grief and relief. The sentence brought a sense of closure, of justice served. Their son, their brother, their friend, would never come back, but his killer would face the consequences of her actions. Across the aisle, Shayna's family sat in stunned silence, their expressions a mixture of disbelief and despair. Their daughter, the woman they had raised, the woman they believed incapable of such violence, was going to prison. Her life irrevocably altered by a single, irreversible act. The trial of Shayna Hubers had captivated the nation. A tragic tale of love, obsession, and the devastating consequences of uncontrolled rage. It sparked debates about domestic violence, the complexities of relationships, and the often blurred lines between love and hate, passion and possession. The verdict, while bringing a sense of closure to a community still reeling from the shock of Ryan's death, also left a lingering question. Was 40 years enough? Could any sentence truly compensate for the loss of a life, for the pain and suffering inflicted on Ryan's loved ones? The answer, like the case itself, was complex, multifaceted, and ultimately unsatisfying. Section 2. The unanswered questions. The case of Shayna Hubers left behind unanswered questions and lingering doubts. Shayna's motive, a complex web of obsession and insecurity, remained speculative. Some believe she acted out of jealous rage, unable to bear Ryan's happiness with someone else. Others saw it as a calculated act of self-preservation. Whatever her reasons, the consequences were undeniable. A young man was dead, his potential extinguished. And a young woman, once full of promise, was now defined by her crime. The case served as a stark reminder of life's fragility and the consequences of unchecked anger. It forced us to confront our capacity for love, loss, and judgment. And in the end, there are no easy answers, only lingering echoes of a tragedy. In a shadowy underworld of crime, where the ordinary meets the extraordinary, you've been journeying with me, Jason King. We've dissected the minds of some of the most notorious serial killers, peeling back the layers of their darkest secrets. Every shadowy corner we've turned, every chilling confession we've analyzed, has been a step deeper into the abyss. But remember, the abyss also gazes back. So, brace yourself as we prepare to dive even deeper. Next time, we'll unravel a tale so twisted it will make your spine tingle with anticipation. An enigma so intricate it will have you questioning everything you thought you knew. Until then, keep your eyes open and your mind sharp. This is Jason King, signing off.